Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer, England.
Okay, Magnolia from 1999. P.T. Anderson.
PTA.
PTA, we were just talking about this, that 1999 is considered one of the GOAT years.
It is. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about all the movies, which I mean, there's way more that I can think of, but like, let's see, The Matrix, and then I want to say A Beautiful Mind, but it wasn't that. What's the one that won the Oscar? That was American Beauty.
American Beauty. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just a ton more that I
guess we weren't prepared to have the 1999 conversation. But
yeah,
no, but I like, first of all, the 90s, I think, are one of those. I mean, obviously every decade has their thing. Like the 80s just has a feel and an aesthetic, and there's something like the John Hughes ness of the 80s, and like there's a feel there. The 70s are where we kind of like started getting movies that started feeling more kind of gritty and realistic, and stripping away all the bells and the pageantry of filmmaking and making it more like grounded and like just like Midnight Cowboy and the first Rocky movie and all that. But the 90s is like the beginning of modern cinema, like the beginning of like,
okay. Yeah. I looked it up. Yeah. Which you're totally right. And 99 seemed to be a pivot. I don't know if I want to say pivot point, but just kind of like so many new, like you're saying, new ways of filmmaking are kind of like opening up modern.
Yeah.
So there was Star Wars Episode 1, which, I mean, that was influential, whether you like it or not. The Matrix, Toy Story 2, The Mummy, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, Tarzan, The Sixth Sense, Fight Club, American Beauty, The Green Mile, The Blair Witch Project, Magnolia, Eyes Wide Shut, American Pie, and there's still Sleepy Hollow, Office Space, Notting Hill, The Insider. There's a ton that came out in 1999.
That's a crazy list. You just said so many titles that are like that are like classics, that are actually, It's also weird to think that Toy Story 2 came out in 1999.
Dude, it's insane.
That's so crazy that they were already on the second Pixar movie.
They were. I mean, I remember seeing Toy Story 1 in the Villa Theater.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there's still even some more, there's like October Sky, which is a solid movie.
Yeah.
And there's like there was another one that I saw, The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I never saw, but just a lot of really influential movies that come out of
and even 98 had like a bunch of bangers too. You had like Titanic,
and 2000.
And 2000. So you had a like little stretch there where people, again, and I do think there was this, like you said, it was a pivot moment where we were starting to move into, like I think Titanic was this thing of like, hey, here's this kind of more epic way of telling these stories that we couldn't tell before. And so was 98 Saving Private Ryan?
Oh goodness, yeah, I want to say it was.
So the year before, but like it's like we started getting
98, and I think technically Titanic was released in 97, but I think it was released in 97, but I think it was like December of 97, so like it's 97, 98.
I guess it just feels like the tools that were being developed and implemented in the late 80s, early 90s started to really kind of like hit their stride in the late 90s into 2000, for better or worse. But this movie is influential for many reasons. I mean, it's the, what is it, the second or third film by Paul Thomas Anderson?
I think it's his third. It's his third, because he did Hard Eight, then Boogie Nights, and then this, and then he did Punch Drunk Love after this, and I can't remember the order of that, but
but this was, in the 90s, PTA was a budding voice in filmmaking. And the reason why we wanted to revisit one of his films is because he's got a new movie coming out called One Battle After Another, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, that we will be watching on this channel. And we thought, let's go look at one of his earlier films. And this one also, a lot of people were comparing Zach Cregger's Weapons to this movie.
Yeah.
So
watching this,
what do you think about that?
I can see where they're coming from. It is definitely tonally very different. This is a drama first and foremost, but the ending has a very strange twist that in this movie that is like, okay, I see the comparisons,
Well,
and
it's
it's a oh god, where there's multiple actors. What do you what do
like
you
a
call it?
mosaic or a
An ensemble piece,
ensemble piece,
and
yeah.
Weapons is pretty much an ensemble as well. It's a lot smaller, but it's still pretty much an ensemble. So
Well, Weapons is also all telling kind of one cohesive story that
yeah,
like it's a much more conventional film
yeah,
than Magnolia. I would actually say that structurally or I guess creatively, not even structurally, maybe more creatively, Magnolia makes me think more of Zach Cregger's approach to Barbarian. When
okay,
Zach Cregger was asked about Barbarian, he would often say like, "Well, I was just as I was writing the screenplay, I would just sort of try to surprise myself, you know." So it's like
yeah,
the
yeah,
writer doesn't necessarily know what's going to happen next, and he just sort of writes the next scene as though it's just like, what's the most interesting thing that could happen? And
yeah,
for me in Barbarian, it's like sometimes that works, and sometimes I think it actually hurts the film because it does
yeah.
just feel like the writer's just trying to think of what's the weirdest next thing that could happen. But Paul Thomas
Right.
Anderson, especially early in his career, in this phase in the 90s, he made several movies where he'd be interviewed by people like Charlie Rose and stuff who would try to get him to like explain what the movie's about. And he would just kind of be like, I don't know, man. Like
Yeah,
he just like
yeah,
refused to give any answers. And this is probably one that confuses the most people is Magnolia, where they're just like,
yeah,
I'm interested in this movie, but what is it about? And he's just like, I don't,
yeah.
he's like, I
Well,
think I had a lot of things on my mind. There's themes
yeah.
in the film. There
Oh
are,
yeah, lots and lots of themes.
yeah.
And yeah, he did. I listened to something today, a little clip from him today, and he said exactly what you said, which is like he's talking about marketing the movie, and he's like, yeah, he's like, what's the movie about? Like, I don't know. He's like, he says, I don't know how to sell the movie, but I could tell you, I could go on for hours and hours about what it's about, which is like you're talking about the theme. Like there's tons of themes. There's a lot of through lines between all these stories, but I think it is intentionally left very ambiguous because he's not trying to say one specific thing. He's
Well, yeah, and it feels like a young filmmaker sort of
yeah,
experimenting with just kind of going with experimenting with structure,
yep,
experimenting with form, and just kind of going, can I make a film out of just characters that I'm interested in? Where
yeah,
I'm just sort of living with these characters and letting them tell me what they wanna do next, and
yeah,
I'm not trying to force a
yeah,
traditional story structure onto them,
yeah,
and, is that enough with really
right,
good actors and really solid craft? Is that
yeah.
enough to make a strong film?
Yeah, well, and so after Boogie Nights, I mean, he got a ton of attention from like Spielberg and like all these big actors and directors, and they were all telling him like, "Wow, how did you do that?" And like just a ton of interest. And then he was like, I think he was. I heard this story. I have not vetted it or anything, but I'm sure the person who said it did. Um, but he was out to lunch with like Warren Beatty, and then like Francis Ford Coppola comes up and talks to him, like he's just like there, and he's like, I saw your movie and that was amazing. He's like, you're in a point now where you can do whatever you want, so you go big. Is basically what he told him. Like for your next movie, they're not going to tell you no, so just go for it and make something that you want to make that you're never going to be able to make again. So he like and he talks about this too, like he probably went too overboard in the sense that like he's like, I kind of acted like a child, like I would yell at people if I didn't get my way. And he
Mhm.
he really pushed for the movie to be 3 hours and 9 minutes. And then even now, like now he's like, yeah, I could have cut 20 minutes out of it. I didn't have to be so like stringent about it.
It's true.
It
Even
is true.
watching
Yeah.
it last night, I was like, "This movie doesn't need to be as long as it is."
No, no, I think it really, but like there's something there's a little bit more lore in this story that I think adds to the movie, which is like he is a young filmmaker just doing what these amazing filmmakers told him to do, which is like, I'm just going to make the movie that I want to make, and I don't care, which is, I mean, it was probably hard on a lot of people, but it's, you got to commend him for doing it, and he
But
did what he wanted.
that's what like like I have such a weird relationship to this film. Was this your first time watching it?
It was.
So I think this is my 3rd time watching Magnolia
Oh.
all the way through. And the first time I saw this movie, I really like, by the end of it, I was like, "I have no idea what I just watched." Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, especially
Yes.
especially because of the thing that happens at the end of the movie.
Yes.
And I just was like, "Well, I thought I was kinda following it," and then that happened, and then the movie ended, and I was like, well, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know then." But I was left with this feeling of, like, I think I like that.
Yes.
And I liked it. I thought I liked it enough that I even went and bought it on DVD,
Oh,
and
wow.
then it just was, like, in my DVD collection for a long time back when I had one of those.
Yeah.
But it was a movie that, like, I didn't it would just sort of sit there, and I would, like, look at it and be like, "Oh, should I watch Magnolia again?" And then I would watch something else, and then I watched it again, like, 5 years ago or something. I was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna watch Magnolia." And the second time I was like, "You know, I don't think I fully understand everything
Yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson is intending to do or say with this movie, but I also don't think he cares if I
Yeah.
fully get it. And I also think that what I kn what I know about this movie is I like it. Like, I
Yeah.
just like I'm immersed in it, and
Yes.
I think the characters are all incredibly rich and
Yeah.
interesting and well drawn and well acted, and I think the craft on display is really strong and
Right.
really engaging, and at the end of it all, I'm just sort of kinda like, I feel like I watched something special and unique and interesting, even
Yeah.
if I don't fully get it, and then watching it last night for the 3rd time, I more or less had a similar experience, but this time I was kinda like, and I do think it doesn't need to be quite as long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, I had a similar experience last night because I started it late and I was
Mhm,
like it was like 10 o'clock or something, and I was like, "Oh," I needed to start it, and I watched it, and I was totally immersed the whole time, like you're talking about, like, I was engaged, and we talked about this a little bit before, but the pacing of this movie is so quick and all the stories are intersecting so much that it did not feel slow or boring.
right.
So like I was very engaged with the movie the whole time, but I was expecting something else. And the ending, like you had told me, like, oh, the ending gets pretty weird. So I was like, okay, I did not expect what it was.
There's no way you could.
No, there's no way I could. But I was like, okay, like I was expecting something different. Even though the ending is very, very strange, I was kind of like, oh, that could have been something different, but I still liked it.
Mhm,
I was like, I just enjoy, like, I can tell there's a lot of craft. I know he's doing what he wants to do, even if he doesn't even know what it means.
mhm,
He is like kind of giving it meaning, and he's doing a lot of long takes, and he's doing a lot of things that, and I mean, but everything is connected on an emotional level and
mhm.
on a theme level. Like
Yeah,
everything intersects really, really nicely. It's not wrapped up in a tight bow like a lot of movies are, or like this movie could have been.
mhm.
But that's not a bad thing. That's not like saying it's negative. It's just I feel like on rewatch, if I ever rewatch this again, I'll like it better because I know what to expect.
I definitely liked it more my 2nd time, and I enjoyed it last night too. But yeah, it's like, that thing at the end does feel like kinda like Zach Krager,
Yeah.
getting a
Yeah.
shot to make a movie, and he's just kinda like, think I'm just trying to kind of have, put something into my screenplay that I think is wild and wacky and fun, and you can imagine this young filmmaker who's just made these really 2 strong films that
Yeah.
everyone's complimenting him, and then he writes this big ensemble piece that's this big epic thing with all of these intersecting storylines, and then he just thinks, what's the I need to have like a big like money set piece. What's the craziest thing that could happen to end this film? And he just writes in like the most absurd thing, but it's not, it's like at a level where it's like connected to, it almost feels biblical in a way,
Oh yeah.
or
Oh yeah.
and 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 the execution of that sequence is crazy. Like
Oh yeah.
the technical execution of the sequence is like, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't really know what it means beyond the fact that the movie has this theme of like crazy stuff happens.
Yeah.
Weird. weird stuff happens, you know?
Yeah, it is weird stuff happens, and it happened, and you just gotta kinda deal like, yeah, I don't know if he knows what we should all take away from it because there's multiple things that you can take away from the movie. I think if I were to, uh, recommend this movie, I think that I don't know who I would recommend it to those who are cinephiles and who want to get deeper into films that are art house cinema. And I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson is very art house, which is a compliment. He's very good at what he does, but you need to know what to expect. This is not a mainstream movie. This is a movie, and it's not an Oscar bait movie, but it's an art house film, you know. And I think if you don't like art house movies, I'd say just skip it. But
Yeah, and it's interesting because like a lot of his films do have a more straightforward narrative than this one.
yeah,
There
mhm,
Will Be Blood is telling a specific story, and it's about a
yes,
specific thing. You know, Phantom Thread is yeah, his later films, Phantom Thread is a really specific story.
mhm,
Um, you know, I feel like this movie it does just feel like a young artist playing in a sandbox of just sort of like
yeah,
and just trying things and being interested in and I think I don't know, I've always enjoyed it for that, but I've also always been like, if this isn't someone's cup of tea, I get that.
yeah,
I
yep,
get I get how I get how this movie could maybe be a little too inaccessible. It's like
mhm,
sometimes Yorgos Lanthimos' work is a little bit like that for me,
yeah,
where I get that the craft is really strong, but it's a little inaccessible. And some of his films are I absolutely love, but some of them I just have a hard time getting in emotionally.
yeah,
That's the thing about this movie though, is I feel like you whether the ending works for you or not, I feel like you can buy into these characters because they're all
yeah,
so
yeah. They're
good.
yeah, they're all very different, and they all have very interesting and intriguing storylines.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Those are sort of our general thoughts. Let's get into just we're not gonna. I don't think we can break this movie
no,
down beat for beat
no,
because of how much it's editing between each one of the storylines. I don't think
yes,
we'd ever be able to keep it straight. So we
no,
can just kind of go through the different characters in this movie. I think we
yeah,
can talk about this prologue. So the movie starts. It starts and ends with this
yes,
narration that I think is really interesting, and he sort of gives us this like montage of things that happened and I think these are true stories, of
I don't know, I don't think they're
they're just like,
true.
he made them up, like, yeah.
I well, or they're either like folklore or like I don't know. I don't know if they're true though.
Maybe they're not, who knows? But the way
Yeah.
that they're presented, it sorta has that, like, Coen Brothers, Fargo thing where it's
Yes.
presented as though it's a true story, as though it's a real thing that happened in real life, and there's sorta just stories of, like, kind of incredible coincidences. Stories
Yes.
where if someone told you all of the coincidences in this story, you'd never believe them
Yeah.
because or if you saw it in a movie, you'd go like, "There's no way," you know?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
and it sort of sets up the theme of just sort of like, hey, sometimes weird things happen in people's lives, you know?
yeah,
Uh,
and this is the kind of the thing that I loved the opening. I thought it was a great way to set the tone, but I was expecting that's what made me expect something different
mhm,
because it says like sometimes things work out and you just have to or it doesn't work out in the way that you expected, but it's still you just have to deal with it. And so my expectation was okay, these all these stories are going to interact with each other in some weird crazy way.
mhm.
And so that was that don't have that expectation if you come into this movie cold it doesn't end how you think it's gonna end.
Yeah, and it's like they do interact and they
They
do have
do.
but
Y
it's not like Crash or, you know,
no,
yeah,
no.
it's not like all of the ways that they interact mean something in some significant way. It's just sort of like I think the coincidence of the film is that on this same day, all of these people who are tangentially connected are all having like one of the most important days of their lives, which
Yeah,
is that's the coincidence. It's like they're
yeah,
all having like a very significant
yeah,
day that but they're individual. Like they're individually
yes,
wrapped and they don't necessarily rely on each other, but they do have this weird connective tissue, which
yeah,
I think is very fascinating.
yeah,
Um, I will say, so after we get through with this opening montage, which which I enjoy, I like the stories
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
tell.
me too.
There's
Yeah,
one guy that, it's like he was trying to commit suicide and he jumped off of a building, and while he was falling, a woman shoots a shotgun out a window and hits him in the chest.
yeah,
And what's crazy is they had put nets down there just a few days earlier because they were repainting the building, and they didn't want the people painting the building to fall.
yeah.
So he would have landed in one of the nets and been saved, but a person shooting a shotgun out the window shot him just as he was passing the window, and that person winds up being his mom. It's like,
Yes. Yeah, because
so it,
and he's the one who loaded the gun because his mom and his dad would always fight and point guns at each other, and he just wanted them to get it over with, and
yeah.
so it went off, and yeah, it's this whole crazy, string of coincidences that all align perfectly for the worst thing to happen, basically.
Right, yeah, and there's, like, what's the other one? It's, there Patton Oswalt is, like, a diver
Yeah,
who, or he swims in, like, Lake Tahoe, and
yeah,
he gets scooped up by
a
a
plane.
plane that's picking up water to dump in a fire, and they drop him into the
Yeah,
tree, but it turns out, I guess, that the pilot of the plane was, like, at the casino that he works at a few
yeah,
nights
that the diver.
before.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and then the first one is 3 men were hung, and they what was it? They killed the founder of this city, and their last names were Springberry Hill or Spring and Berry
Y
and Hill or something that
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's just all these things, like these weird coincidences happen, but that's just how it is. Like you just have to accept it, you know?
Yeah, and again, it's like I don't think that the movie is trying to tell you what these coincidences mean. It's just saying
No,
stuff
no.
like this happens, and
Yeah.
it's almost like just kind of the universality of life,
Yeah.
the sort of uncanny weirdness of life. And
Mhm.
I don't know, then we get into this movie, and this movie does something throughout that I really enjoy and that I miss and that I wish movies would kind of get back to, because this was also a thing in the 90s and early 2000s, is having like a really specific concept for the um for the music.
Mhm.
So like, like Wes Anderson wanted Elliott Smith to do the entire soundtrack for the Royal Tenenbaums. He wanted Elliott Smith
Mhm.
to do Beatles covers and it just
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
Elliott Smith. But then Wes Anderson also did that with Life Aquatic. He had that guy Sue George play acoustic covers of David Bowie songs the entire
Yeah,
movie. And
yeah.
then also when Matt Damon and Ben Affleck made Good Will Hunting, they just made the entire soundtrack Elliott Smith songs because they were just like, we really like the sound of Elliott Smith. Paul
Right,
Thomas Anderson was listening to a lot of Amy Mann when he was writing the movie, and he
right.
just reached out to Amy Mann and he was like, "Could I just make you like the soundtrack of my movie?" And she was just like, "Yeah, of course, sure." And then I think she even wrote a few songs for the film as
Yeah,
well. And
yeah.
we open with this when we start the film proper. We open with this cover by Amy Mann of "One Is the
One is the
Loneliest Number,"
loneliest number. Yeah,
which I
which is
just
a great cover.
it's great. And I just also just love a movie where like all of the songs that come in have a connected tissue, and it makes them feel like they belong to that film
Yeah,
rather than just sort of like a needle drop. It's not that
yeah,
it's not that I don't like a good needle drop. I love a
right.
good needle drop, but like, I Am Sam did this where they did the entire soundtrack and it was
Yeah,
popular artists covering Beatles songs
Beatles
because
songs.
Sam's obsessed with the Beatles.
Yep.
And, like I like I just like when movies do that. I think it's a
Yeah,
cool thing.
there's a lot of cohesion. I think it works really, really well when you're making a contemporary movie,
Mhm.
or if the songs have significance. Like I Am Sam with the Beatles, that made sense. This movie, it's contemporary. It was contemporary for the time in 1999, so it does make sense that like all it's not just random needle drops, which those work really well in like romantic comedies or comedies that just kind of like have a blend of emotions. But this makes it feel very cohesive throughout because the movie itself is cohesive on an emotional level between all the characters.
Yeah, and John Bryan's score
Yeah,
feels like he built it, like, almost off of the tone of Amy Mann's music.
right.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I would imagine that he did.
yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
it feels like they kind of work in chorus with each
right.
other throughout the film,
Well,
and
and Amy Mann was on set, and she actually filmed a music video on set with the actors.
yeah.
So, like, they knew this from the beginning that this was gonna happen. So I'm sure it was all, and I'm sure it helped with the creative process, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I what do you think about the sequence when, in the middle of the film when all of the actors sing the Amy Mann song?
I was like, okay, it did not bother me.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it, but
Mhm.
I was like, okay, they're doing this, but also like I know what to expect with Paul Thomas Anderson. Like he does weird things, just
Yeah.
not necessarily just to do them, but he's not afraid to all of a sudden turn it into a musical, even though it's not really a musical. They're just coincidentally all listening to the same song. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of like it's more on the emotion of it, it's more the impressionistic emotional side of all these characters singing this one song that really has a lot to do with their each lyric that they sing has something to do with what there is going on in their life. So
Well, and it's interesting because when it first starts out, this sequence, which I really like it, I think it's really
yeah,
impactful.
yeah.
When it first starts out, it feels like the first character to start singing is listening to the Amy Mann song and singing
Mhm.
along with it, and then we assume the next couple characters are doing the same thing, but then we get to characters where it's like when we get to the kid in the library and he's singing it, it's like, I don't think he could possibly have that
No.
s so I think, like, the movie is blending the world of, like, are they listening to the song and singing along with it, or is this a genuine musical sequence in this
Yeah,
film?
yeah.
And I like that. I like
I
the
yeah.
yeah,
I actually liked it too because of the I wasn't surprised by it, which is good. I mean, if you're coming into this thinking, trying to watch a mainstream movie, you're going to be disappointed, and you're gonna be like, why is there a musical section in the middle of this movie? But I was just kind of like, oh well, I've seen a few other of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, and this doesn't surprise me. So I
yeah.
enjoyed it too. I actually felt emotionally that it hit the moments how I feel like he wanted it to.
Yeah. So let's talk like character by character in this
Yeah.
film because like we said, I last night watching it, I had forgotten how you talked about the pace of the editing and the camera
Yes.
movements.
Yes.
The way that this movie is shot, it kind of doesn't ever slow down with the way that the camera moves. The
No.
camera's
No.
always kind of like whipping into shots and
Yep.
doing like these like fast pushes or following a character through an area, and then the edit switches into like it feels like even though we're switching from character to character and all these different scenes, it feels like the camera's always moving in this movie
Yes.
and
It
always
well,
yeah,
and the thing that's crazy about that too is, like, it all feels very, very planned.
yeah,
Not like it's just moving around for no reason. I mean, there are whip pans, which is a good way to transition from one scene to another, but you also have to know that that's what you are going to do. So
right,
you have to whip pan out, and then when you film the other scene, you have to whip pan in.
right,
And so it shows a lot of forethought in this
yeah.
whole thing, which I was like, man, how did you keep track of all this? I mean, first of all, it's a 3-hour movie. So like how did you know, like, okay, here I'm gonna whip pan over, and it's gonna hit with the close of a door and all of that stuff. It's pretty impressive.
Imagine being the script supervisor on that set
That would not be fun.
and trying to make sure that you've got all of the right coverage
Oh
that
man.
you need.
Yeah. That would be a hard job on that set for sure.
But also, like, maybe PTA at that time in his career was, like, so young and, like, hopped up that he just had every single shot in his head every day, and he was like, "I got it."
Yeah,
Like,
probably,
you know?
honestly. I mean, he's the type of guy that would have done that. So,
Yeah, but, okay, so, maybe we start with, like, John C. Reilly as this cop,
okay.
with, his storyline in his day. I like that he kinda drives around and narrates to
Yeah,
himself, like,
I
about
love
his
that
life.
too.
Yeah.
He's got nobody. You think he thinks he's on Cops or something,
Yeah.
and, like, I felt like this could have not worked
Uh-huh.
in another movie, but this one, it works so well. Like, he just narrates his whole day, and he's, like, talking about how cool his job is, and,
Yeah.
like, I really loved his character. I thought it was, very well acted by John C. Reilly,
Yeah.
and it also just kind of there's something endearing about him, I
Yeah.
mean, he's always on the edge of being ridiculous,
Right.
but I don't ever think he crosses it, and I really enjoyed his character.
Yeah, it's always hard not to, like, get a little chuckle when you're watching him do
Yeah.
more serious stuff because he's just kind of an effortlessly funny person.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, like, we start off with him. He goes to like this woman's house who there was a noise complaint, and I love the like the way that he just takes himself so seriously and takes his
Yes.
job so seriously,
Yes.
but also he's like a cop that you can tell he's like, I don't like to, I don't want to hurt anybody or do, but like,
Yeah.
but also he like,
But I'm an officer of the law. He
yeah,
says
he,
that all the time. I'm an
uh-huh.
officer of the law.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'll be darned if I'm ever gonna break the law. The law's the
Yeah.
law,
Yeah.
And oh, he says, heck if I'm gonna break the law, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like I just like what a Boy Scout he is and
Oh,
what
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
especially in this movie, like he's the most buttoned up person in the
Yeah.
film. And yeah, and so like he finds a dead body in this woman's closet, and he goes outside and meets this little kid who is trying to tell him who did it, but he tells him like in a rap, and
Yeah.
John C. Riley's like, "All right, get out of here," like,
Yeah. I think honestly, this is what I would lose.
yeah,
I would lose this whole thing. Like, you can start out by, I don't know, you could have cut it down real quick just to see that like he finds a dead body and you kind of get a feel for who he is. But this ends up not really paying off because the kid is like Marcy, her name is Marcy that he's talking to, which is really
right,
funny scene between him and Marcy, and they're just
mhm.
yelling back and forth. But you cut it down and you take out the whole rap part because it never gets paid off. Like,
It does it's like the kid comes back later on to help
yeah,
Julianne Moore and stuff, but I agree. I think this whole first section with John C. Reilly at this apartment, you could trim a lot of this
yeah,
down so
yeah,
that we get to him meeting, um, what's her name? Uh, is
yeah.
it Celeste or
So Claudia.
Claudia? Claudia sooner.
Yeah, yeah,
Because even the way that we first are introduced to Claudia and stuff, it's like, yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but yeah, John C. Riley basically after he leaves this murder scene, he goes to a noise complaint over at Claudia's apartment, and
yeah,
Claudia is playing Amy Mann music
yeah,
really, really incredibly loud in her apartment. And Claudia is a big cocaine addict.
yeah,
And we were introduced to Claudia earlier in the film where she was like, out at a bar and she hooked up with some guy who she brought back
yeah,
to her apartment. And her dad, who we find out is her dad later on, he shows
yeah.
up to her apartment just to try to I guess he's trying to,
He's trying
you
to
know,
reconcile with her.
yeah, I think he's trying to reconcile because I think he feels like his time is
Well, no, because he does have cancer.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I
So,
mean. Is he feels
yes.
the
Yeah,
impending, you know,
yeah.
but what we find out from Claudia really quick is like she does not like her dad and
No.
she does not want him in her space. And so we get a profile of Claudia early on in the film that it's like, okay, she seems to be like one of the most visibly troubled characters
Oh,
in the
yeah.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got a lot of problems, and she even says it later on, but and you could tell it's also kind of another endearing part of the character of John C. Riley because it's pretty obvious that she's strung out and she's kind of like on drugs, right?
Yeah.
But it's like so far over his head. He
Yeah.
doesn't even get it. And I'm like, how could you not see that? Which again just kind of goes into this Boy Scout, like he just doesn't even realize.
Yeah,
Uh,
like, he asks her at one point, he's like, "You do some drugs today, Claudia?"
yeah,
She's
yeah,
like, "No, no, I didn't." And then he's like, "Okay."
yeah.
It's like
Takes
yeah,
it. He's good. Yeah,
yeah, and he's just, like, totally cool with it, but also I think, like, it's very clear that John C. Reilly is he's, like, such a, like, innocent,
yeah, yeah,
guy who really shouldn't be living in the San Fernando Valley and really like, he should be living somewhere more like where you live, like, he should be living in,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
like
yeah. In Utah County.
in
Yeah,
Utah County, yeah, and but you can see that, like, when Claudia opens the door, he's like a cartoon character who's seeing, like, a princess for the first time.
yeah,
Like, he's just like, "Oh,"
yeah.
you know?
He's like, yeah. He really just like stops in his tracks and
Yeah,
yeah,
and so then he sort of does everything that he can to stay at her apartment as long as he can. He's just like, "Well, I gotta check this out, make sure everything's safe
yeah.
for you," you
And
know?
it's like awkward to a point.
Yeah,
He does leave ultimately, and like
yeah,
and then he like comes back and he's like, I know that this is weird. It's like, but I want to ask you on a date. And she's like, which I'm trying to understand Claudia. Like, I do think she likes him, but it's also kind of strange that she likes him. I was trying to figure that out the whole time. Like, does she really like him, and is she trying to have this be a relationship, or is she just kind of like trying not to get in trouble? I mean, what was your take?
I I've always been I never know how to feel about the relationship with Claudia
Yeah, yeah,
and John and
yeah.
or Jim, I think is his name,
Jim,
Jim,
Jim.
because he has the same name as her dad. Yeah,
Yes,
which
yes, which
yeah,
I noticed. Yes.
yeah. So, but it's like I've a part of me goes like I think Claudia does like Jim, and
I yeah,
I think Claudia likes the idea of a guy like Jim who's got like a good job and who's got a good set of
yeah,
morals and values, who would like take care of her and be kind to her. But
yeah.
I find the way that Jim sort of wedges his way into Claudia's life to be a little bit like not I don't like that he's like, "Well, let me come into your apartment," and then he just like kind of refuses to leave. And then she finally is like, "Well, can I make you some coffee or something?" He's like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, I'll take you some coffee." You know,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it feels initially like she's just sort of stuck with him and
yeah,
waiting for him to leave. But then when he asks her out, she seems genuinely like really excited. Like her
yeah,
response when she's like, "You want to go out with me?" And he's like,
yeah,
"Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, when?" And he's
yeah,
like, I'm off at 10." And she's like, "Okay, I'll go out with you at 10." She's
yeah,
like, yeah. And he's
yeah.
like,
It was
"Okay."
very yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is like she seems to be wanted for who she is. So at first it is, yeah, it's very weird and it's very strange, but then like I think she does something that she wants. So, but it's really weird. It's really strange to get there, and it's also just kind of a strange interaction. But I think it fits well for those characters.
I think that what we find out from Claudia, and again, like Paul Thomas Anderson's not going to give us any easy answers here with
No,
this movie.
no,
I think that what we do find out is, in our sort of expository information on Claudia, it's like she goes to bars and she hooks up with
yeah,
men that she meets at bars.
right,
She's not getting asked out by nice guys on dates.
yes,
She's
yeah,
meeting people who are already out and inviting them back to her apartment to do cocaine and spend the
yeah,
night.
right,
And so the idea that like a sober, buttoned up man like
yeah,
Jim,
yeah,
who just saw what a mess she is, would be like, "I think you're gorgeous and I would love to take you to dinner." I
yeah,
think that there is a part of her that's like, "Wow, really?" Like
yeah,
I think she goes from thinking, "Is this guy gonna arrest me?"
yeah,
Like, am I about to get arrested, to, "Oh, this guy, like, he likes me and he wants
yeah,
to take me out to," I
yeah,
think I think that might be what's
yeah.
going on there.
I think yeah, and I think it works, and I think her story is also very interesting because so her dad, maybe we talk about him
Yeah.
next.
Yep.
Jimmy Gator is
Yeah.
his Jimmy Gator. And what's
He's
the
the
actor's name?
he's the librarian from Seinfeld.
Oh yeah.
I never
The
forget about
librarian.
a I never
A
forget
book,
about a
yeah.
late book, Seinfeld.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Philip Baker Hall. I love this guy. This
Yeah.
guy's a great character actor that like shows up in a ton of stuff. And he
Yeah.
actually does a really good job. But yeah, he came to her apartment at the beginning. He's a host for a TV show. Like it's like basically
What
like
do kids know
yeah,
is what
what
it's
do
called.
kids know?
Yeah.
And
It
he has
seems to be
cancer.
implied it seems to be implied that he's been the host of this show for, like, 40 years. It's like one of
Yeah,
these
yeah,
shows that's, like,
long
it's
time.
been on TV forever, but, yeah, he's got cancer, and everyone in his inner life is kind of, like, aware that he's probably on his last few episodes of the show,
Yeah,
and, yeah, and so he's going around trying to kinda make things right
yeah,
in his life. Yeah.
and he is drinking his way through the show. I mean, this all happens in one day. I
Yeah.
mean, the stories themselves, they get into a little backstory, but it's the majority of it is just one day.
Yeah. And, yeah, and I do like this, and it's like, yeah, old school TV host, even as he's dying of cancer, he's still just like, he's gotta have his cocktails before the show, and I like when they're walking to go record the show, and the guy's like, "Oh, geez, Jimmy, you're like, you're having the drink." He's like, "Oh, I'm totally loaded."
Yeah.
He's like he's like
That's funny.
he's like, "Oh, I'm totally
Yeah,
wasted." He's like, "But,
yeah,
like, he's like, what I've been doing the
yeah,
show for."
he's like, "I could just do this in my sleep,"
He's
basically, I
like,
think he
"Read
says
these
that.
cards, it's the same thing every day."
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, so he's the host of the show, which is a big part of the story
yeah,
of the film. But yeah, Claudia's his daughter. At the end, I mean,
yeah,
he winds up at one point on the show like collapsing
yeah,
and having like a big health emergency, and they actually have to end the show early, both because of that and because of what one of the contestants does.
yeah,
It
which
kind
we'll
of
get
puts the
into.
show in a
Yeah.
yeah, kind of puts the show in a stalemate. But when he goes home, he just decides to confess to his wife, like, "Listen, I think I might be dying, and I think you should
Yeah.
know I've done wrong by you. Like I've
Yeah.
cheated on you so many times, and I'm so sorry, you know.
Yeah.
And
And that's a big theme of there's two big themes with this character that relate to another character, but the
yeah,
fact that he has a ton of regrets
hmm
is a big, big theme. Like
yep,
just losing the things that you love and it being all your fault,
right,
right? Like it's all his fault. Like he didn't treat his wife well. He cheated on her and he was not good. And then we do find out because his wife's like, I'm not mad. She's like, well, I'm mad, but I'm not. You're like, she's like, but I want to know why Claudia won't talk to you. And he's
yeah.
like, well, right? And it basically comes out that he most likely physically, or I mean sexually abused her as a child.
I think,
And
and again, I think this is really interesting the way that Paul Thomas Anderson writes this too.
yeah.
That she's like, I need to hear it from you. Why don't you just
Yes.
say it? And then he just keeps saying, I don't know.
Well, and
He
he's
just
like, I don't remember.
yeah, and it could be what he's saying is like, I was drunk and
Yeah.
it's totally possible that I did do that, but I
Yeah.
genuinely don't remember. Or it could be I keep seeing this with like I watch a lot of true crime documentaries and
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
watching a lot
Yeah.
lately. And I keep seeing this thing where like even when people are caught sometimes,
Oh,
they still can't just say that
yeah.
like they'll still like I
They'll
watched this one
never admit it. Yeah.
or even like it's like you're going to prison for the rest of your life. Just say like it's like it's done. Like the
Yeah.
verdict is in, we know
Yep.
everything, we have all the physical evidence, and they'll still try to like tell the story in a way where they look not
Yes.
as bad. And it's
Yeah.
like, what's this, what's the point at this point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to look at his character and kind of go, is he lying when he says, I don't know, or I don't remember? Or is he genuinely like the times that she's accused me, I was blackout drunk and I have flashes of things that I might have
Yeah.
done and I'm pretty sure I did, but I can't genuinely say one way or
Right.
another.
Right.
Or I don't or is it that he won't allow himself to remember
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
he did to his daughter?
When I watched it, I was leaning towards he's never going to admit it.
Yeah.
He knows, but he just can't do it because he can't bring himself to admit to himself that he did. Right. Like he's hiding it in his own mind. But you can read it any of those ways that we just talked about, which I think is pretty very what makes it very interesting.
Yeah, and when we learn that, it gives us a lot of context on like why Claudia is the most visibly disturbed person.
Yeah.
Because first
Yeah.
of all, her father is a really famous person. He's this
Yep.
really famous television host, and he's on TV every single day. And I do like I mean, I love this scene when the show ends and the credits are rolling and she's just watching it and she's just sobbing. And it's
Yeah.
like the idea that A, she watches her dad's show regularly, and
Yeah.
B, she just sort of sits in her apartment doing drugs, like re-traumatizing herself, watching her
Yeah.
abuser
Yeah.
on TV. And but yeah, like the desire of this old man to reconcile things before he dies, but he can't. The thing that you need to be able to do is be honest.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, this plays out in several different
Yeah.
storylines in this movie.
Yeah.
But he even in the end can't really be honest. And
No. And
yeah.
I think the other big theme that this character shares is the child abuse theme. That's
Mhm.
that's a big one throughout the rest of the movie. It
Yep.
comes up with Tom Cruise. It comes up with the contestant, which is the child who's on What Kids Know, which we can maybe talk about
We can
him
probably
now.
talk about him next. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got this kid who's on the show who's like a genius.
Yes.
And he basically the show is like it's a panel of kids versus a panel of adults. And
Yeah.
I loved this detail that Luis Guzman plays himself
Yes.
on the
Oh,
panel.
is it
Um
really?
yeah,
Okay.
so
Because it
I
said
saw
Luis. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm watching the movie and Luis Guzman is one of the adults that like is playing the kids in the show,
Yeah.
and his panel says Luis, and I was like, "Is he playing Luis Guzman on this show?"
Probably.
And then in the credits it says Luis Guzman as Luis Guzman. I was like, "That's so," 'cause they
That's
don't even
great.
say that it's like a celebrity episode of
No.
What Do Kids Know? It
Yeah.
seems to be just like a normal episode of What Do Kids Know? And it's
Yeah.
a normal panel of like adult panelists, and one of them is Luis Guzman. And I think
That's
that's a
so
really
funny.
just a funny little detail that Paul
Yeah.
Thomas Anderson wrote
Yeah.
into the script. But this kid, basically like this panel of kids, they're about to break the record that was previously set probably 20 years earlier by
Yes.
a contestant known as Quiz Kid Donnie Smith, played by William H. Macy.
Yes.
William H. Macy's great in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll get to him later. But the
Yeah.
kids are about to break that record. And this kid, his like these like these other kids and like the way that Paul Thomas
Yeah.
Anderson talks about like what it's like to be a kid growing up in the San Fernando Valley in Hollywood in the film industry, that
Mhm.
even if you're on a game show like this, like these kids have been on TV several days in a row because they keep winning on the game
Yeah.
show. And now they're getting agents and they're doing commercials and they're doing all this stuff. But the main kid, Stanley, just wants to,
Yeah.
he's just there to, he's the reason why they're winning. He's just
Yeah.
kind of like a genius. But his dad is an actor who's like seeing dollar signs and just so excited that
Oh,
his
yeah.
son is about to, his son's going to be his meal ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
his
and
dad's just the worst.
his dad is the worst, and he even talks. He's in the green room with the other parents, and he's like, "Oh, it's soft abuse or something." He says
Mhm.
something like that, it's soft abuse. I just tell him to clean his room, and like he's talking about abusing his child, and I don't know if he's ever physically abusive, but he's definitely verbally abusive, and he's probably too rough with his child. But I mean, it's apparent he is abusive, and this kid, I feel really bad for this kid, but what a great job that this actor
This kid's
does.
fantastic. This
Yeah.
kid is so believable in this role,
Yeah.
and yeah, and his dad is I was gonna say also his dad's the same guy that plays Buck in Kill Bill Volume 1.
Oh,
Yeah, that's like the nurse
yeah.
Uma Thurman gets her car from.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I
it's
remember
that
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's that guy. Um,
That's funny.
and he's just like a guy who has a face and a voice where he plays a good scumbag.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this kid is fantastic. Felicity Huffman has a little
Yeah.
role as like
Yeah.
there's all these people with interesting little like, did you see Clark
Clark
Gregg?
Gregg. Yeah. I was like, was that Clark Gregg? And it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Clark Gregg with a very small role
Yes.
in this movie as like a, probably stage manager of this
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
And then yeah, Felicity Huffman's like the kid wrangler and yeah, and then as they're going into the show to do the episode, the kid Stanley needs to pee, but they won't let him.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
sort of just this commentary on like, the commodification of kids in
Yeah.
media and all this stuff. And
And all the adults are just pissed at this
yeah.
kid. Like, why is he not? Because he does really, really well at the beginning of the show. And then about halfway through, he just quiets down because he has to go to the bathroom. And
Mhm.
they're just like, well, can't you just hold it? And then they never let him go. And he's just sitting there the whole time. So he's not answering the questions. And all the adults are getting mad at him. And
Yeah.
it's like, again, like you can take a lot of different things from that, right? Like kids, they won't speak up to adults, but
Mhm.
adults also aren't really listening to them.
Mhm.
But this one was just heartbreaking, especially because he's holding it for so long, he ends up peeing his pants,
Mhm.
and you see it running down his leg, and it's just like it's like really heartbreaking the whole way that this is treated. And I mean,
His
I'm,
dad
I'm
comes and he's like, "What are you
yeah,
doing this to me, Stanley? You're ruining,"
yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that they didn't go any further with this.
Yeah.
I appreciate that they didn't like keep pushing this, because I mean it's bad enough everything that he goes through, but then in the end, I mean his dad, he does stick up for himself. He's like,
I
"Dad, you
love
got to
that
be
scene.
nicer to me." Yeah,
I love that scene, "Dad, you gotta be nicer to me." And then he just goes,
yeah,
"Go to bed." And he goes, "You have to be nicer to me, Dad."
yeah.
But I
And
also
he's like
like
really happy with himself, which
yeah.
is really good.
I also like his monologue that he does to Jimmy, where he's like,
Yeah,
"What is that, Jimmy? I said I need to go to the bath," yeah.
yeah, yeah. He
And
sticks up
it's
for himself. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I like this, and again, he kind of, it's all wrapped around him in many, many ways. The stories like kind of in many ways revolve around him, and because he's really representing the child abuse of it all.
yeah,
Even though everybody kind of has their own trauma from the past, he's the one who's currently going through it. So he
right.
kind of like wraps it up nicely. But I think that maybe we can go to William H. Macy now, because he's
I was gonna say Quiz Kid Donnie Smith. So
yeah,
we don't the kids don't wind up breaking the record because Stanley had to pee his pants and because the
yeah,
adults are being abusive. But
yes,
Quiz Kid Donnie Smith, the record holder, we catch up, we're with him as an adult, and basically his whole storyline is like he's basically his parents took all of his money that he made on the quiz show,
Yeah.
but also as an adult he works for like an electronics store as a salesman, and
Yeah.
they were using him for their billboards to say like, hey, come buy your TV or whatever from Quiz Kid Donnie Smith. It's just, and it's that, again, it's that sad thing that exists in LA where, and I live here, and this is a real thing where like
Yeah.
there are all these people who kind of have celebrity from a thing that happened 10 to 15 to 20 years ago or
Yeah.
more. And in this town, you can sometimes it's like it's really hard to go back to having a normal job after you've had
Right.
a certain
Right.
amount of celebrity. And then for the rest of your life, you're sort of capitalizing off of whatever juice you can get out of that, out of those 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
But Quiz Kid Donnie Smith's whole thing is he's terrible with money, and he's probably blowing all of his money every day at this bar because he's
Yeah.
in love with Brad the bartender
The bartender.
who
Who
yeah, who has braces, and Quiz Kid Donnie Smith wants to get braces too.
Yeah. I need my surgery. My oral surgery.
Yeah.
I need it. My oral corrective surgery. Braces. Like,
The late
he's
90s were the golden age of William H. Macy, and
he was so great.
he's so good in this, and he's so good he's just such a good, like, neurotic,
He
crazy
really,
person.
really is. And I hate to say this because I love William H. Macy and I love him in this movie. But if you had to cut anything, you could cut him as a character because his whole thing is pretty flimsy when it comes to connecting everything. But I also just love him in this movie, and like he does connect to John C. Riley.
You're totally right. Like the movie, if you lose Quiz Kid Donnie Smith,
Yeah.
we don't like I mean, there's some fun stuff like the rivalry between him and the older gay man at the bar who are
Yes.
both
Yeah.
trying to get Brad. It's fun, but again, it's all stuff that if it wasn't there, we could still do the whole storyline of the kids on the show. I
Right.
like the idea
Right.
of like us following the past champion, that it's like
Yeah.
the people who are about to break the record. And I get that like the
Yeah.
movie has this theme of like coincidence that it's like on the same day that these kids are about to unseat the
Right.
reigning champion. Quiz Kid Donnie Smith is having the worst day of his life. Like everything's
Yeah.
falling apart. He gets
He
fired.
he runs through like a glass window in his
Yeah, he
car.
drives into
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
7-Eleven. He gets fired. Brad, the bartender, is getting flirted with by an older man with more money, and he's getting outplayed by this older man, even though neither one of them has a shot with Brad, the bartender.
No,
Um,
he's probably a straight guy who's just
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get money. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and, by the way, I know that bar. It's the Foxfire Room, and I've
Oh,
been there many times.
nice.
Yeah, it's a good place to play darts. Um,
Hey, I love
but,
darts.
yeah, um, but yeah, and then he decides that he's gonna break in after he gets really loaded and really drunk. He borrows a friend's car, I guess, like a neighbor's car, and he
Yeah.
decides he's gonna go to the store and break into the safe because he still has all of his keys,
Yeah,
and
which a great cameo by, oh my
Alfred
Alfred
Molina.
Molina.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's
Solomon,
Solomon
Solomon.
Solomon.
Yeah.
He just, like, yelling at him. He's like, "I brought you into my store and you suck. You suck
Yeah.
as a salesman." And, like, Alfred Molina, how is he such a good actor too? Like,
He's awesome.
he's, like, in this and he, like, makes this huge impact for a scene that lasts, like, 2 minutes. But
Yeah.
it's great. I love that. But,
Yeah,
yeah, he's stealing
I
from him.
and I do like that, like, when the big thing happens at the end of the movie, Quiz Kid Donnie Smith is, like, trying to break back in because he does have, like, this he steals all this money out of the safe, and then he breaks his key off in
Yeah, in the
the
lock.
keyhole in the lock accidentally, so he thinks he has to climb back onto the roof to, like, get back into the building, and he falls off of this thing and breaks his teeth on the ground. Like, his
Yeah.
teeth he didn't actually need oral surgery, but now he's
Now
going
he
to get
does.
oral surgery, and he also gave all the money that he stole back. So
Yeah.
he needs oral surgery. He doesn't have Brad the bartender, and he doesn't have any money or a job.
Yeah.
And, we do sort of leave things with Donnie just kind of like, good luck, man.
Yeah. Well, and John C. Riley is the one who helps him and
Yeah.
saves him, and William H. Macy kind of has a breakdown, and it is well acted scene.
Oh yeah.
I guess PT Anderson was like, "Oh, I wanted to give him an emotional scene because he never gets that." So
Mhm.
he gave him one, and it is good because he really, but yeah, it really is not a very
He's great and
happy ending for him.
he's great in Boogie Nights too. He's
Yeah.
yeah. Uh yeah, okay, so maybe we go from here to Julianne Moore?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Julianne
Okay.
Moore,
Okay, so
which
Julie she's fantastic in this
she
movie.
is fantastic. She's always great.
Yeah.
She is a very manic woman,
Well,
which
well, and again, we have the theme of, like, people who have deep regret,
yes,
and
yes, 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 yes,
and
yes.
this is a woman who basically she married a man named, oh geez, it's like Elmer or something or a
It's
big because
oh my
he's the
gosh.
guy that produces What Do Kids Know?
Yes, he
He
does, yeah.
produces the show that uh
Yeah, that
Claudia's dad hosts, and
yes.
yeah, and she marries this man basically for his
Partridge, Earl Partridge.
Earl Partridge, and it's like a big Earl Partridge production.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's a TV producer,
yep,
and she basically married this guy for his money, but now he's dying now, and he's in home health hospice, and it's like definitely it feels like it's the last day of his life, and
yeah,
she's kind of just unraveling. She goes to get some morphine for him, and this is something that they do it during end of care life where there's a kind of liquid morphine that can be prescribed that's basically like once we start doing this, once we start
yeah,
giving an end of life patient this morphine, they're basically going to be pretty out of it for the
yeah,
like you're not going to be able to really talk to them or reach them once they start taking this, but this is also going to help hasten the process of death, but also make it less painful and less
yeah,
uncomfortable for them. She's sort of in the ends, the last stages of her life with her husband, but she's finally realized that after all these years of just waiting for this guy to die so she can inherit his money, that she actually loves him and that
yeah, yeah,
she this whole game, this ruse that she was doing pretending to love
yeah,
this man so she could be in his will, she actually loves him and now she feels terrible. She just feels
yeah.
like an awful person
Because
who
she has cheated on him multiple times,
yeah.
and she did, like you said, she admitted, "I didn't love him, and I just wanted him for the money, but now I do."
Yeah.
So
And also this is, like, maybe another storyline where, like, some of her scenes feel a little repetitive,
they do.
but because it's Julianne Moore and she's so great, like, we're
Yeah,
totally engaged every time we're with her because she
yeah,
holds the screen so well, but it's
yeah,
like the information about her character is kind of just what I just said, which is just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
she
she's
feels really guilty that she cheated on her husband and she's getting his meds,
yeah,
and
and
that's
she wants out of his will because she feels bad, so she's trying to make a recompense, like, "I don't
yeah,
want his money, like, I really did love him." So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like you said, it gets a little repetitive but she's so good that, like, it's very, very engaging. The thing that I thought was gonna happen in the end
mhm,
of this movie, because I thought there were gonna be a lot more situations where something happened that one person didn't really want to happen. So what I thought was gonna happen is she was gonna end up committing suicide, and then Earl was gonna make it and, like,
mm,
somehow miraculously not have cancer anymore, right? Or something to that effect of where, like, oh, the cancer's receding, so you get another year, so that he lives and she dies when she could have had that extra time with him, right? And I thought that would have been one of those things of, like, the kid who's committing suicide would have been saved but got shot by his mom by a gun that he loaded, kind of a situation.
totally. I think that I think that's the expectation with this
Yes,
movie when people
yes,
watch it is that it's gonna have more of those things of like, "Oh, because of this, oh, geez."
right,
But I think that that's the interesting thing about this movie is that Paul Thomas Anderson loads it with a lot of interesting coincidences that over
right,
but they never really pay off or amount to what you think they're gonna amount to.
right,
And
right,
I think there's an interesting commentary in there about just how it's like, well, in real life, consequences don't necessarily wind up meaning anything or
right, right.
having this like perfect poetic symmetry or,
Yes.
yeah.
And I think it, again, like, it's fine how it ended, but I think it would be very interesting to see if something like that could have happened, because I think it still would have been a great movie, but it would have probably been a little more mainstream.
Yeah.
which is what he wasn't really going for. So
Yeah. So she at one point tries to kill herself in her car. She's like,
yeah,
and then she decides to go inside and she gives the medication to Philip Seymour
Philip
Hoffman,
Seymour
who's the
Hoffman.
hospice nurse for her husband. But I
Yeah,
think then she takes the morphine or something for she takes some of the meds for herself, then she's gonna go
right.
in her car and I this scene is so emotional when she says to Philip Seymour Hoffman, like, "I'm gonna go now, and I'm not gonna look
Yeah,
at him, but let him know that I love him and that it's
yeah,
okay, and that I'm
yeah,
okay." And
yeah,
she just feels so terrible that but Phil
yeah,
man, Philip Seymour Hoffman's so good in this movie.
yeah.
Um,
Which sh Julianne Moore ends up trying to kill herself. The kid who was rapping comes into her car and ends up, I think he takes money from her, but he
yeah,
ends up calling 911. So she gets saved
yeah,
and she ends up living. But I think we can go to Philip Seymour
yeah.
Hoffman now. And this is the thing, like, we lost Philip Seymour Hoffman way too soon.
He's just the best.
He's like such an amazing actor.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in this, I watched this and I was like, why does Philip Seymour Hoffman care so much? And like, it just seems like he's a very simple, very caring person.
Mhm.
And that's what I thought in my mind. And then I read something and PTA said that exact thing. He's like, I just wanted a character who was very pure and very caring and wanted to do what's right. And I was like, that's exactly what I got from that character. I was expecting something more from him to have like a deeper connection, but all it is he's just a caring person and he played it so well that like that's exactly what I got from it.
Yeah, his whole through line in the movie is just like, even though, Earl Partridge is kind of a crotchety old,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he maybe not the nicest guy, and his wife's definitely not the easiest person to
Oh,
deal with. Phil Hoffman's just a character, kind of like John C. Riley's character, but John C. Riley, his job requires him to at least posture to have more like, well, hey, you got to do,
yeah. Yeah.
don't do that. Um, but Phil Hoffman's character is just like, I'm gonna do everything I can to make the end of the end of this man's life, um, um, special,
Right.
and and basically, while Earl is still lucid, he tells him that he'd like to see his son, and he says
Yes.
something about how, like, I'm we don't talk, we're estranged, but he tells him his son's name is Frank Mackey, and
Yeah.
you kind of see on his face, he's like, "Your son is Frank Mackey?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." He's like,
Frank
"Okay."
TJ Mackey. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically Phil Hoffman spends the whole movie trying to track down Frank Mackey. And it's funny,
Yeah.
at one point he calls for like groceries from the grocery store,
Yeah.
which I was sitting there going, wow, they had DoorDash back in the 90s, but
I know. I thought
it
that
just
too. It's
it
like,
just was
wow.
something else. They just didn't have,
Yeah.
before apps existed, I guess you could just
Yeah.
call a
Yeah.
delivery service to go pick up groceries for you. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he has groceries delivered, but he's asking them, he's like, "Do you have Playboy?" And they're
Right.
like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you have Penthouse?" They're like, "Uh-huh." And he goes,
Yeah.
"You guys have Hustler?" They're like, "Yeah." I love this. He's like, "Really? Okay, yeah."
Yeah.
And you're kind of like sitting there going like,
What is he
it
doing?
doesn't feel like he's ordering these for himself,
Yeah.
but he gets all these magazines, and he immediately opens them up, and you see that he's looking for an ad for Frank
Right.
TJ Mackey because he knows who this is.
Yeah.
And Frank TJ Mackey is basically just Andrew Tate from 1999. He's he's a hookup artist, a dating coach. Well, I mean, dating coach is not, that's the wrong term. He's a alpha
Yeah.
male, ultra chauvinistic, ultra misogynistic, um, you know, guy
Yeah.
who teaches men how to tap into their alpha power
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
dominate women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Extremely misogynistic, extremely yeah, he's very sure of himself and
And he advertises to men who are
yeah.
reading Playboy and
Yeah.
Hustler. Of course he does.
Yeah. And
So
but yeah, that's what Phillips the whole movie, that's all he's trying to do is trying to
mhm,
get and he is successful. Like he goes and they're like, "Well, what do you want to order?" And he's like, "I don't want to order anything. I want to see if I can get to Frank Mackey or trying to get to him so that he can tell him that his dad is dying."
yeah.
And at one point, which I thought this was a little I could have taken this either way. He spills pills and one of the
Mhm.
dog eats them and then it dies. And I'm like, okay, what do I still don't know really
Yeah,
know what I was supposed to get from that.
I don't know that we need that.
Yeah,
But
I
again,
didn't
I
think they
like
did.
this screenplay just has so much in
It
it,
does.
and I think that I think so much of the so many of the events, again, it feels like a young screenwriter, a young filmmaker,
Yeah.
just sort of putting things in to fill it with, like, details that make it feel real, and
Mhm.
all of it's about just, like, the unintended ways we bump into each other or cause harm, and the intentional ways that we cause
Yes.
harm,
Yeah.
and so it's like, that might be a theme there where it's like Phil Hoffman, who's the nicest character in this entire movie,
Yeah.
the purest heart kills a dog, and
Yeah.
by pure accident, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and maybe that's why that's in the movie. But it is a thing that's like it's such a small little detail of the film that
It
it's like,
is. Yeah.
oh, like a dog
Yeah.
dies from eating meds.
Yeah.
And also while I was watching it last night, I was like, just take a second to pick all the pills up.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Um,
was kind of it. But he gives an amazing performance in a very small part
yeah.
relatively, but he brings so much to it. It's kind
Yeah.
of crazy.
He just gives the character so much heart and
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
pathos. But yeah, I guess that just leaves us with Frank TJ Mackey.
Yep.
So this is Tom
Tom
Cruise,
Cruise.
who we've done a lot of on this show, and for my money, this is one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances ever. To me, it's like it's in his top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
And it's one of those roles where it's like people forget that Tom Cruise is a stellar dramatic actor,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
I mean, it's funny because Tom Cruise I don't mean this as negative as it may sound, but he plays a variation of the same character in most of his movies. And that's not bad. He plays it really, really well, and he adds things that make the characters distinct. But he's very much I'm going to play a similar type character,
Mhm.
and he does that very, very well. But then every once in a while, he'll play, which it's probably honestly I heard, which is probably too true. It feels like this, and then the guy in Tropic Thunder are
Yeah,
really the only characters that he
yeah,
played where he like goes full out
yeah.
and he just like gives into this character and makes them. I mean, I don't know how this character would have been pulled off by anybody else because Tom Cruise just like he kills this role.
You know who else could have done it, I think, and it would have been a completely different it would have been a completely different
Yeah.
style, but it could have worked, is Phil Hoffman. So, Phil Hoffman would have been a completely different kind of
Yes.
guy who does this, but, like, think of Phil Hoffman in Punch Drunk Love, like, that character.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have him being the guy who's, like, selling,
Right. Right.
like, hookup courses and stuff, like, there's
Right.
a
It would be
world
very
where
different.
but the version that Tom Cruise plays is, like, the guy who's actually got the sauce, like,
Yeah.
he's got the body, he's got the hair and the style and the
Yeah.
confidence and the machismo, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, Tom Cruise I just watched this short on YouTube today, and Tom Cruise was like Tom Cruise was filming Eyes Wide Shut, and he saw Boogie Nights, and he called up Paul Thomas Anderson and was like, "Hey, I wanna be in your next movie, like, write a part for me." So Paul Thomas Anderson was like, "Okay." And he, like, showed it to Tom Cruise, and there wasn't much to the character. And Tom Cruise was like, "Well, let me take this character and see what I can do." And so, like, he visited him, and I guess Tom Cruise like gave the opening monologue that he gives in like this in this movie with the music, and like he's like said everything, and he like kind of wrote a lot of his lines. Tom Cruise helped write a lot of his lines,
Yeah.
and he said that like PT I credit to Paul Thomas Anderson for letting his actors do that, which is great
In a
because
movie where he was like, so like, I'm making my movie.
yeah,
He's like, well,
yeah.
but if Tom Cruise wants to,
Yeah, I mean, but, like, he made this character, like, his wardrobe, his everything, he gave him all of these things, which really, like I mean, it's a great performance. He's a horrible person,
yeah.
but
No,
it
Frank
pays off
TJ
so well
Mackey,
in the end, but
yeah,
yeah.
Frank TJ Mackey is a total scumbag.
Yes.
And I really so he's we for when we were introduced to him, he's giving like a seminar, which feels like it's
Yeah.
happening at like a hotel or something,
Yes.
to a room full of just sad, pathetic men who want to be
Yeah.
taught how to be terrible like him.
Yeah.
And it's all
Yeah.
about how to dominate women, and but like I love these performance takes of
Yeah.
him doing doing the seminar and how the camera doesn't cut, and it's just like 3 minutes of Tom Cruise just doing this physical
Yeah.
performance on stage, and yeah.
And I love how his microphone pops and, like, it sounds like you're there, like, he doesn't sound good. I know this is a small detail, but, like, it sounds like you're listening to him through a microphone in
Mhm.
a hotel room, and, like, the audio isn't the best, but, like, it works really, really well, and I totally agree, like, it makes it feel much more real, and I guess the infomercials, they really filmed those, and they, like, aired them on TV
Yeah.
as if they were real infomercials to, like, promote the film, which is, like, crazy.
I also like when he sort of misspeaks when he's giving the presentations, and then he, like, stops and, like, and reset,
Yeah.
and one of the times it feels like genuinely like Tom Cruise said the wrong word, and
Yeah.
then he just kinda gets frustrated and says the right word and repeats
Yeah.
it, but also, yeah, when he's like, "Open your blue booklets to page 23." "No,
Yeah, yeah.
white booklet," white, like that whole thing, but
Yeah.
I
And then
just
he goes
like,
over and he flips over the table,
yeah,
and he just keeps going on, like, yeah.
yeah, it's and I yeah, but he's being, like, in the middle of they take a break with this seminar. In the middle of it, he goes to be interviewed by this woman
Mhm.
who it feels like she's from, like, a TV station or something, and she's trying to
Yeah.
get to the bottom of who is Frank TJ Mackey. And it's so I think that the way Paul Thomas Anderson builds this out in the movie,
Yeah.
it's to me one of the most compelling storylines that is slowly revealing itself to us throughout the
Yeah.
film, because it's she the interviewer does a really good job of, like, sort of placating him initially
Yes.
and letting him feel like because a guy like Frank TJ Mackey is so deeply insecure, he needs to
Yes.
feel like like he
Yeah.
needs to feel like every woman who ever talks to him, of course they want him. So he needs to feel like even this interviewer is just so excited to be in the same room as him. And
Yeah.
she really waits to pick her moment to
Yeah.
kind of
W
spring her trap on, if you
Yeah.
can even call it that.
And the way that she does it too is so it's so genuinely, like, it's completely opposite of what he would do.
Yeah.
TJ Mackey would come in and just like, "You did that," but she does it very, very softly, and she like you said, she kinda reels him in, and then she's not trying to force anything, she's like, "I'm just trying to figure it out," like, and he is so mad because he's not in control of the situation,
Mhm.
and, I mean, at the beginning of the interview, he's, like, in his underwear with his pants around his
It's this
ankles.
power move that he just
Yeah.
stands in front of the interviewer in his underwear. How about this back
Yeah.
somersault into the handstand?
Oh, it was
I
awesome.
I was like, "Dude."
And he's like, and
Yeah, yeah,
he's very creepy,
yeah.
weird, like off-putting, but like he's so macho, like
When he just feels like he's on, like, meth all the
yeah,
time.
he
He's
does.
just like,
Yeah.
"Ah, yeah, get so ooh, ooh, yeah."
Yeah.
And then, like, in the middle of the interview, when he starts to feel his footing slip, he, like, asks his assistant, like, "Hey, coffee. Could you get me coffee? Do you want
Yeah.
coffee? I need coffee," but, like,
Yeah,
he can
yeah.
feel his footing slipping. Once she starts to kind of try to get a handle on his it's like she starts talking about college. She's like, "I
Yeah.
couldn't find any records of you being," and then he's like, "Oh, that's because I wasn't enrolled," and then
Mhm.
he starts to feel the footing slip. But I also like this whole thing of, like, whoever I was in my past, that doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and that's part of his book. I wrote that in my book, that I don't care about my past. And what's so interesting is, in a weird way, Paul Thomas Anderson was, like, prophetic with writing this character, because there are so many interviews of Andrew Tate where he talks just like this, where people because Andrew Tate, his father left his family when he was a little kid, just like Frank
Mhm.
TJ Mackey, and
Mhm.
people will ask him about it in interviews. They'll be like, "Do you feel like you are the way that you are because you have, like, a
Yeah.
resentment towards your father?" And he'll always be like, "Oh, I don't care about that." He's like, "I don't think about things that happened to me when I was a kid. I don't worry about,
Yeah, yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
that happened to me." He's like, "I think that's for weak people. I don't really think," and it's like he's like Andrew Tate, who became to prominence 20 years after this movie came out, you know, is Frank TJ Mackey. Like, he's
Mhm.
this guy
Yeah.
who was raised, his father abandoned him as a kid. And rather than just acknowledge this wound that he has from being abandoned as a
Right.
kid,
Right.
he's just turned it into this, like, toxic wasteland of an industry for himself, this empire, of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the redeeming thing about this character though, because he is, I mean, he's a horrible character. He gets a call. Somehow Philip Seymour Hoffman got through to him. And I don't know, it's his assistant or something, lets him know, like, listen, this guy called us and all the, you know, the address matches, the phone number matches that he gave us, all this stuff, like he really is with your dad. And Tom Cruise finds out that his dad is dying. And so he goes to him.
I do want to, before we get there, I do want to say
Yeah.
I love when the interview turns and she
Oh, yeah, yeah,
points,
yeah.
she kind of reveals that she knows his real name and that he
Yeah.
changed his name. And he's like, yeah, I took my mother's maiden name. And she's like, okay, yeah, and your initial name was Partridge, you know? And he's like,
Yeah.
okay. And she's like, and Earl Partridge was your father, and he left you as a kid, and you
Yeah.
were alone, and your mom died of cancer, and you had to take care of her. And she's like,
Yeah.
what was that like? And the fact that he just goes quiet and
Yeah.
just spends the rest of the interview just smoldering and just staring at her with like contempt. And then
Mhm.
I love the line where she goes, come on, Frank, are you just not going to talk? What are you doing? And he goes, I'm quietly judging you.
Yeah.
And like, and I love that he spends the rest of the interview not saying anything and just staring at her. And then he gets up and goes, you wanted my time. I gave you my time. And he sort of like has this outbreak, like
Yeah.
this outburst
Yeah.
where they have to put, but like, I love that you can see the confident machismo strutting
Yeah.
guy just gets broken by
Yeah.
just the mention of his trauma, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Of his mom, because yeah, he did have to take care of his mom, and she died, and the dad wasn't there. And so he does get this call. He goes to his father, which we didn't. We've kind of talked about the dad. Um,
He's not much of a character. I mean, he's just in
no,
bed dying.
well,
And
yeah, and this played by. Oh man, once I see his name,
he does have the big monologue where he goes, "Oh, the regret, the
yeah,
gosh dang regret, the
yeah,
regret," and
yeah,
he talks about everything that he regretted in his life. He
yeah,
talks about the fact that he regrets leaving his child and
right.
abandoning it, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I mean, he
mhm,
did have child abuse with Tom Cruise's character. Goes into that
mhm,
theme. So Jason Robards is his name.
yeah.
Um, which my yeah, so this was his last role, and he was in a similar situation where he was kind of sick.
Wow.
But he was able to take on this role, and it ended up being his last movie, but apparently that kind of helped him. But does a great job, and he feeds into the regret, but you can tell he's kind of a horrible person. He was a
Yeah.
horrible person too, right? So Tom Cruise ends up going back to his house, and then he has this interaction, which this is really kind of I feel like this is the emotional climax of the movie.
I mean, I will say I've always every time I come back to this movie, I know that this scene is coming, and I know that it's a big scene. It packs a big punch.
Yeah.
This time watching it, I gotta say for my third viewing, I had forgotten that PTA cuts in the middle of it and cuts away from it and comes
Yeah.
back to it. And it's one thing where personally, I think the scene is so strong. I know that this movie, it has a certain pace to it. It's always cutting, it's always
Yeah.
jumping around.
Yeah.
I think this is one time where he should probably just stay. I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
think he should let this scene keep going. I think the
Yeah.
choice to cut in the middle of Tom Cruise's breakdown and then just cut back to it later, I think he should stay with it because the performance is so impressive and strong.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
is. I mean, you can't really do it justice just by talking about it,
yeah.
but he really just breaks down.
It's like,
And
"I'm not gonna cry for you." Like,
yeah.
but I love that before he even says it, before Tom, because it's all one long take of him
Yeah.
walking in,
Mhm.
sitting down, and talking to him, and it's all so you know that the actor's gotta, like, get there and build up to it, but before Tom Cruise even says it, a tear falls down, and then he goes, "I'm not gonna cry for you." I'm
Yeah.
not, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he has this amazing, just he's trying to hold back, but he ultimately does cry for his dad. And so I guess Philip Seymour Hoffman said in an interview that, like, this, because Philip Seymour Hoffman is crying in the background,
Mhm, mhm.
and he said that was genuinely him crying because he didn't know that Tom Cruise was going to do that. Like
Yeah.
he apparently it was kind of just like, all right, let's just see where this scene goes, or something like that. Like it wasn't really scripted. And Tom Cruise gave it so much and went so hard in this direction. And ultimately that, this reaction happened because PTA told Tom Cruise, like, just imagine your dad was dying, which I think Tom Cruise's father had died. And so he was kind of putting himself in that situation. And it apparently was so emotional, and just Tom Cruise did such a good job that Philip Seymour Hoffman just like started crying as a character, which all works so, so well. Like such an amazingly powerful scene about this horrible character finally admitting the trauma that he has and facing it.
And begging his dad not to leave,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
he's saying, like, "Don't go away, don't go away," like,
Yeah.
and yeah. Uh, yeah, and again, it's like, do we think that Frank TJ Mackey is, like, cured after this? Probably not,
No.
you know? But I get a kick out of when he comes into the house and he goes, "Hey, I'm not kidding you. If those dogs come near me, I'm gonna drop kick 'em. I'm
I love
gonna
that
drop kick the
too.
dogs."
Yeah, I'm gonna kick the dogs. Yeah.
But I think now we need to talk about what
Yes.
happened. So
The
when all of
ending.
these stories are sort of at their apex, Tom Cruise is breaking down at his dad's house. Julianne Moore has been rescued and she's in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. John C. Riley is driving away from his date with Claudia.
Who left him,
And
and like she's
yeah,
worried that she won't like him.
yeah, and
So
he
her
sees Quiz Kid Donnie Smith climbing up to get onto the roof of the
building.
building. Jimmy's wife has left him, who's Claudia's mom. She's going to go be with her daughter, who was, molested
Yeah.
by her husband.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is pulling a gun out of a drawer in his kitchen, and he's going to kill himself. And our current quiz kid has escaped the movie studio and gone
Yeah.
back to his library at his school, and he's reading, and everything's sort of building to this crescendo. And like it, like watching this last night with Olivia for the first time, I just was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, things are about to get crazy." And she's like watching, because she was like looking at her phone kind of, and then she looks
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
and it's like when that first frog just hits the windshield of John C. Riley's car, and he's like, "Oh!"
Yeah.
It's like I remember the first time I saw this, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, I was like, What was that?" And the frog. It's a frog, and because it has been. We didn't say this. It has been raining the entire movie.
yeah,
The entire well,
on
not
and
the
off,
entire movie,
on
but
and off.
yeah, and it's really coming down when it is coming down, and then it stops,
Yeah.
and then John C. Riley's just driving. He turns around. You hear one thud or
Mhm.
two thuds, and he's like, "What?" And you see a frog kind of slide down his windshield, and then frogs, thousands and thousands of frogs, start raining from the sky.
Who can you imagine reading this screenplay, like, being one of the actors who gets sent this, and you're just like, "Wow, I'm just, like, loving this." Like, all these characters are so interesting. I love the ways that their lives bump into each, and you're just going through you're just flipping through the script and like,
Yeah.
"Oh, man, wow, this scene, what a beautiful oh, it," and then all of a sudden it's like, a frog hits his windshield, and it's like,
Yeah.
"What?" And it's like
Yeah.
suddenly a tsunami, just a typhoon of frogs, just a downpour of thousands and thousands. What?
Yeah. Where's this
Wait,
coming
what
from?
is happening? And that's how it feels every time you watch the movie. No
Yeah.
matter, I mean, again, I've only seen it 3 times, but every time I'm like, and the execution technically, because it's not done with digital effects. Some of them are. There are a few of them are,
Yeah.
but they do
Yeah.
they do this practically, and they have these wide shots where it is just raining frogs, and
Yeah.
the frogs are smacking against light poles and like off of cars, and it's crazy. It's
Oh,
just
and the sound they make, the "doo, doo, 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 doo," like
yeah.
all the thuds, it is insane. Like,
And everyone, all of our characters are getting just
yeah.
hammered by this frog storm. And outside of, Frank Mackey's dad's house, they're landing in the pool and they're smacking. And you just basically, I like that you just see Philip Seymour Hoffman just looking outside, and you just see his reaction to it, like, what? You
And
know,
then he says, "Oh, it's raining frogs."
Yeah,
and that's all.
it's raining frogs, and then we get our quiz kid in the library, and he just keeps saying, "This is a thing that happens. This is
Yeah.
something that happens." And this is the movie at its, like, most art house. Like,
Yes.
that's, like, the most we didn't even we I guess we talked earlier about the musical sequence where
Yeah.
earlier
Yeah.
at, like, the film's midpoint, right before it's heading into the 3rd act, all of the characters sing an Amy
Yeah.
Mann song.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's just like at Claudia's apartment, they're breaking the windows.
Yeah.
And there's the one interesting thing that happens, and this shot is crazy, is Jimmy's about to shoot himself in his kitchen, and we get this shot that's a crane shot that goes down from the sky. It
Yeah.
goes, and this is before we had drones in like filmmaking and stuff. And I've seen the making of this shot, and it's crazy, but we get this shot from the sky, and it's like the POV of a falling frog, and it
Yeah.
comes all the way down and goes through the skylight of Jimmy's house,
Mhm.
and it falls and hits his hand and knocks the gun away, and but it causes like an electrical fire in his house, or
Yeah.
something. It does,
It does something, yeah,
yeah,
and it looked like he was bleeding too, probably from the
yeah,
frog hitting his head, but he's like
yeah, and
yeah.
then, but it,
That's
I
the end
mean,
of his story, though. That's the last we see
yeah, I
from him.
thought that was interesting that they show
Yeah.
like this electrical fire start, but we don't see what, like, we don't see if like his house burns down or something
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that. Um, but yeah, it's just we have this crazy storm of frogs, and
Yeah.
there's a really close up shot of a piece of art in Claudia's apartment that has the words "but it did happen"
Yeah.
on it, and to this day I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about with
I
that.
don't
I remember
either.
the first time I saw it, I was
Yeah.
like, "No, it didn't."
Yeah.
I was just like I was just like, "But it did not, and
Yeah.
frogs do
Yeah.
not rain from the sky. I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's just a metaphor for how crazy things happen in life, and these
Yeah.
unex I think
Well,
it
and it is interesting. There's I watched a video today that there have been documented accounts of animals falling from the sky, mainly like fish or frogs. I don't think they've ever been this big because these frogs are huge. These frogs are
like big
ginormous.
old bullfrogs.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but like there are, and in some cases, they can be picked up in the sea. Like fish can be picked up, and then so it's not like I mean, this is, but it's all crazy anyway. But like it is interesting that is something that could happen in a much smaller way. Um, but even still, like this is all about the thing that I found the most interesting is that Paul Thomas Anderson didn't even know that was because that is a reference in the Bible, right?
Right.
There's a
I
Bible.
Yeah.
There's which
Did he not
it's
even
like
know?
he said he didn't know when he wrote the script. There's somebody who wrote about something, and he kind of copied that. And then the actor, the like older gay actor in the bar,
Mhm.
he's the one who's like, "Oh, well, this is in the Bible," and he's like, "What?" And like he found out about it. So then you see this. I think it's in Exodus 8:2. You see all these 82s in the movie. And once Paul Thomas Anderson found out about that, he put 8-2 in the movie all over so that it would kind of like he's like,
But
I
is
need to make it look like I meant to do that. And
Well, no, but isn't that even crazier though too, that
it
like
is
that
crazier.
like
Yeah.
the movie is all about coincidences, and that without knowing he was making a biblical reference to
Yeah.
frogs falling from the sky, I just think that like the fact that he could plagiarize the Bible without ever having read the Bible and without
Right.
ever
Right.
having heard that story
Right.
is really interesting and fascinating. Just sort of the movie feels like it's very much about like the connective tissue of human consciousness and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like it makes me think of like philosophically the black swan kind of
Right.
uh paradox or dilemma, not paradox, black swan problem. It's basically, for a long time people would say that's about as likely as a black swan. People in like England would say this,
Mm,
and it's because they lived in a region in the world where there actually was no such thing as a black swan where they lived.
mm.
They'd never seen a black swan. The only kinds of swans that existed were white swans. So it was sort of like a saying like, yeah, when pigs fly, or
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
hell freezes over, or something
Yeah.
like that, like something that's never going to happen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden one day, and this is like, back in the age of exploration
Yeah.
with ships and stuff,
Yeah.
the 1400s or whatever, they
Mhm.
traveled to another region of the world, and they
Yeah.
found out that that region was teeming with black swans. And so it's sort of like one of those things where it's like we think something's impossible until it's not, you know?
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
I think that I don't know. I think it's really interesting to be like
it is.
this movie culminates with this crazy, insane biblical
Yeah.
event,
Yeah,
but no,
and I mean,
yeah.
I thought too immediately, I thought, "Oh, this is referencing the Bible and it's trying to say something about that." But yeah, to know that, like, it was ultimately not intentional, but somehow the coincidence of it all even happened in real life, it just makes it all more interesting. But, it also for some reason, it feels very fitting that the movie ends this way with a
Well,
raining of frogs.
and then, I I've always loved the final shot of this movie.
Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with it, and I'm kind of obsessed with the execution of it too. We get, sort of in the resolution of like everyone coming out of their homes after, in the next day after the frog storm, and the quiz kid tells his
Mhm.
dad, you gotta be nicer to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. John C. Riley goes to Claudia's apartment and
Mhm.
he's talking to her, but this Amy Mann song is playing called Save Me that's beautiful.
Mhm.
And we can't really hear what John C. Riley's saying, but we can hear that he's talking to her.
Mhm.
And the song is mixed louder than his voice, but he's like saying something to the effect of like, I do want to be with you and I
Mhm.
want to give this a
Yeah.
shot. But you can't you just sort of get the gist of it,
Mhm.
but what's most important is her face and, like, the emotion of her because, again, it's just this one shot of her
Yeah.
performance, and it's sort of her it almost feels like you can see on her face this, like, feeling of hope or belief, and he
Right.
sits down and hugs her, and then she looks directly into the camera, and that's the end of the movie, and
Yeah.
I've always just sort of been obsessed with that that ending
Yeah.
shot. I just feel like it just as me as, like, a film fan and, like,
Yeah.
composition fan, it just leaves me feeling very, like, cool.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like, cool.
Yeah. It's like, all
Yeah,
right, that's the end of the movie.
yeah,
And that yeah, that it's a very strange, well-made movie.
yeah, yeah. So that's Magnolia. Let's get into scores. If this is your first time watching our show, we do scores out of 10, 10 being the best. Kramer, what's your technical rating for Magnolia?
My technical rating, is an 8. I think this movie was done I should probably give it an 8.5.
Mhm,
Um, it's it's a big epic without being epic. It's kind of about the emotions and everything, but they were able to do something. The performances were amazing. Cinematography is very good.
mhm.
A lot of oneers, which we didn't really talk about, but there's a ton of oneers in this movie that are done really, really well. Everything is done well. I think I dock it just because it didn't need to be so long,
Yeah.
and you can see the indulgence of PTA because he's like 24 when he made this
But
movie or
it's
whatever.
crazy how much he's able to make 3 hours not feel like 3 hours
Yes,
by
yes,
keeping the movie just moving with this frenetic pace. It's
yes,
kind of really impressive.
yeah. So it's kind of okay. You could have cut this down. Even 2 hours and 45 or 2 hours and 50 minutes
Yeah.
would could have been made, but
Mhm.
but really well done. What's your technical score?
8.5 from me as well, and kinda just the same thing. I kinda feel like this movie definitely doesn't work if the craft isn't as good as it is.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a screenplay that is a big swing in so many different ways.
Hmm.
And the thing that makes it work is a really handed director
Yeah.
with a really good relationship with whoever his editor was for this, and
Yeah.
a really strong relationship with his DP, and then just a cast that was top to bottom kind of flawless. And so it's like, and then I just all the little artistic choices. I love the Amy Mann music. The
Yeah.
only and where I dock at points is like we've talked about is like there's definitely stuff in here that is as impressive as the film is. I think that there's probably a 2.5 hour long cut of this movie that
Yeah.
is just as impressive that he makes 2.5 hours feel really brisk and really easy, but
Yeah.
it just feels maybe a little like we just get to the good parts faster or something like that. I don't know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I think that he made the movie he wanted to make, and the execution is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So
Pretty
how about
amazing.
the ending?
The ending, I am giving a 9 for the acting from all of them, but especially from Tom Cruise. Just that it just works so well, and it's such like an emotional scene. And then also for the I don't know what you for the guts to end it with raining frogs. I think it's kind of like, it could have been different. It could have been like I had talked about, you could have everything intersect, and something bad happens to something who you thought was going to be good, and all of that. So it could have been that, but I mean, he made the end that he wanted to, and it somehow works out. And I mean, I can't say that I love this movie, but I'm like, wow, you can just respect it so much for how daring it was and how well it was executed.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the ending a 9.5,
Nice.
specifically because of that last shot. I just
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
I just think it's something about, like, when the black screen hits and his name written under like, hits,
Hmm.
the the way it's timed with the music and the aiming, I just am like, that execution combined with, like you
Hmm.
said, the chutzpah, the balls
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
end your movie on such an insane note that's so unforgettable and so kind of iconic, and the execution of the raining frogs and everything to just like you could look at that as sort of like a cop out of like you didn't know how to end this movie. You didn't know how to end it, so you just wrote the craziest thing you could think of, and it's like, yeah, maybe, but
Yeah.
somehow he pulls it off.
Yeah.
and so you got to give
Yeah.
it to him.
Oh yeah.
Um, how about rewatchability?
Rewatchability, I gave a 5. It, mainly because it is so long.
Mhm.
Could have been shorter. Again, it's not that I love this movie, but I respect it. And but I'm not like, it's not that something that you can just turn on and just
Mhm.
kind of like watch. I think it is very interesting to watch again, I'm sure. You can get more things out of it, but it's also it's a little frustrating in some ways, of like the piecing it all together and like, well, what does that mean? But maybe I need to let that go. But I also am not going to like run out to watch it again.
Yeah, I gave it a 7. Like I said, I owned this movie for a long time and it would
Nice.
just sit. It would just sit on my shelf because it's so long.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
being said, every time I've watched it, I've really, really enjoyed it. And
Right. Right.
every time I've gone back to it, I've really respected what's going on a lot. And there is always new stuff. I think that that score would be higher if the film was like an easier one for me to just put on and be like, "Oh yeah, this movie's like 2
Yes.
hours long."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it moves really quick, I don't know. But because I know I'm like strapping in for this big epic journey that also has an that because I also know that like by the end of the movie I'm not likely to understand it any better than I ever
Yeah.
have. It's
Yeah.
sort of like, well, what am I turning it back on for? you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to figure anything out. And
Right.
I think that he's made it in a way where he doesn't necessarily want me to.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so how about cultural significance?
Cultural significance, I gave a 6. I like we talked about at the beginning of the movie, 1999 was such a big year for movies. I think this kind of got overshadowed by some of the other more mainstream movies.
Mhm.
I think it is a big movie for Paul Thomas Anderson fans. Um, and I mean, you got to respect it. But I don't think it's had a huge impact. I mean, I think a lot of people didn't really see it when it came out, and they just can't really see. I mean, like, it's great to go back and see what Tom Cruise can do, but I don't know if a lot of people, because he didn't really. I mean, he promoted the film, but it also wasn't really like his brand. He was happy to do it, but like, so it just didn't seem to have as big of an impact as I think it could have. So
Yeah, I gave it a 7, and you're probably right. I should probably it's probably more of like a 6 or something. I think the reason why I did that is because Paul Thomas Anderson's career is still going. He's still one of
yes,
the most
right.
respected writer directors in Hollywood, and I think that this film definitely didn't it's not like it like he took a big swing and he didn't flop, but it is when people think about his filmography, they're more likely to talk about There Will Be Blood or
Yeah.
The Master or, Boogie Nights than they
Mhm.
are to talk about Magnolia. But he's actually had a couple misfires like Inherent Vice, which was another movie where he was really trying to just experiment and be weird. Licorice Pizza, which I thought was actually a pretty good movie, but it just sort of kind of came and went. This is a
Mhm.
movie I think that I do think that like cinephiles like hold this movie high up, which is why I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still think that like people who care about P.T. Anderson like this movie
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So how about your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 7. Extremely solid movie. I mean, it's definitely a movie for cinephiles. I completely respect P.T. Anderson for what he did and the risks that he took, but it's really long and it's also not as satisfying as I want on this first watch. Maybe on rewatches I'll give it more and raise it up, but for now it's just like a really solid movie that you have to respect and appreciate for what it was able to do.
Yeah, I gave it an 8. And I think that on my first watch, I probably would have been more like a 6.5 or a 7.
Yeah,
And it's a
yeah,
movie because I really, like I said, the first time I saw it, I wasn't sure what I thought at the end of it, just because I was
yeah,
like, I don't really know what just happened.
yeah,
But I had this like feeling like I'm pretty sure I liked that.
yeah.
Like it's hard to not enjoy the ride while you're on it
Right,
or to not be engaged with it while
right,
you're on it. And
right.
now I'm just sort of at a point where I'm like, I don't really care that I'm not sure I know everything about what that movie is
Yeah.
saying. I just like it and I'm glad
Mhm.
it exists. And those are my thoughts. So
Great.
let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on Magnolia and Paul Thomas Anderson. Let us know if you're excited to see one battle after another. We will be watching that, but that's not next.
Right.
Next, so we just watched the great Philip Seymour Hoffman in Magnolia. We're going to watch a movie with his son in it that's in theaters right now. We're going to be watching The Long Walk, which is in I've already seen this movie. I
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed it. I think it really surprised me how well executed it was. J.T. Molnar, who wrote and directed Strange Darling, wrote the screenplay here. What is it, Forrest Wilson? That's the director, or
Uh,
um,
no, Francis Lawrence.
Francis Lawrence.
Yeah, yeah,
Francis Lawrence is the director. I knew it was something like that.
yeah.
But go watch The Long Walk if you want to watch along with the show. That's what we'll be talking about next week, and we will see you then.
See you then.